No.
No, all happy?
Yep.
Great. Okay, Cambridge Library. Any comments there? No, all happy?
Yep.
Yep. This is getting better. Library fees. Any comments?
Nope.
No? Okay. I just wondered whether we would say borrowing fees for a reserve collection or rental collection. I'm not quite sure. A reserve, I don't know what people feel about that. Or
In
just the,
maintaining fees for new releases of books, do you mean?
right. Yeah, I think that's.
We do have that in there. It says we also note that borrowing fees for a reserve collection, magazines, DVDs, and children toys would remain in place.
Yeah, so it's just that how we call what we call it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, in some libraries they actually call it specifically a rental collection, as
Sure.
again, which is where the latest, bestsellers are all sitting. But I don't know.
Can I just?
Yeah.
I've never had a Cambridge Library card because I don't read books. Having fees, is that a deterrent?
I think it actually is for a lot of people.
We believe it is, yeah.
Yeah. I
What was-
think.
Sorry, Chair.
No, carry on.
What was interesting, Jim, was that when they removed the fees for the e-reserve collection, so the ebooks and e-audiobooks just really recently, the figures of rates have increased like by 120% of people actually accessing those resources. So I think it shows that once you make something free, people are more open to utilising that service.
Right.
Hmm.
Through you, Chair. Liz, is there money available within the council to get rid of the fees altogether?
We won't know that, Jim, until next week. So at the moment, we have got a paper being delivered, and Gary, you might be able to talk to this as well, about whether, what the current situation has done to all of our budgets. So we're getting a full analysis, hopefully in the next week or so. And
yeah, I do understand the current situation. I totally get that.
Yeah. So there's 56,000, I think, is the shortfall if we were to take the fees away. So whether that will certainly be, I guess, a question that we'll be asking as this recommendation comes through.
I think the difficulty is going to be that everybody in the district who seem to be, so many of them are opposed to the library fees, and they do point out that Waipā is the only library that actually charges for all the books. Other libraries manage quite well just charging the rental on things like the videos, DVDs, and the popular collections, but everything else is free. And I think while things are going to be difficult for council, it's also going to be difficult for a lot of our borrowers. And I would hate to think that, somebody's going to have to come to the library and decide, I can only afford, one book this week or whatever. And I think
that's exactly my thinking, Chair.
And I think we've got to be very careful on that one. I would hate to see that happen. And I think we also need just a wee reminder that once upon a time, our town had a Carnegie Library. And the reason that it was that the title of Carnegie was taken away was because we started charging for books a long time ago. And that's what, there are very few, and that's just one of the things. The origin of most of New Zealand's library services is actually because of the Carnegie Library system. And I would hate to see that long tradition. I'd like to see it reinstated, but we can't do that. It's too late. We've moved out of the building. We started charging fees, but I just think the intention was always with the public library that it be a free service. Okay, any other comments?
Sue, Mike, I assume we're still having overdue fees.
Oh, yes.
whatever.
Yeah, you have overdue fees, and you know, and a rent, as most of the libraries now have a rental collection, which means they've probably got about 4 copies of the latest, you know, bookseller, you know, top of the book list. They'll have that, and they'll be charging rentals on that, but the majority of the books will be actually free. And I mean, let's face it, you know, every library probably has books that sit on a shelf, and they don't get borrowed as often. And so this doesn't seem to be a reason for having them on the shelf, hoping that someone's going to come and pay 50 cents to take it out.
Can I ask a question, Sue?
Yep.
What are the figures for people using the library? Like, I know it's up there after school hours and that sort of thing. Is it there during the day as well?
I don't know. Elise, do you have the figures there?
We weren't, sorry to interrupt, Elise, we weren't given figures in regard to when people use the library, but we were given figures about who borrowed what and who were the people that used it the most. And since like 2012, adult borrowing has dropped quite significantly. And so we think that maybe cost is playing a part of that.
Yeah.
Sorry, let's get to you.
Yes, I think you're probably right. I mean, you do see a lot of people will perhaps, you know, go into the library, and I suspect that some people, because you see them actually sitting in the library for quite a long time, I suspect that, you know, they might have a favourite book that they go and hide somewhere so no one else can find it, and they can go back the next day, finish reading it.
Through you, Chair, just Jim, in response to when people use the library, that's not what really we've been looking at here. We've just been looking at bringing Waipa's library service up to par with the rest of New Zealand. Being one of the only libraries in the country that charges fees seems a little bit out of touch with what's happening for the rest of Kiwis. So a big part of it has been just creating kind of that equity for Waipa residents. What most New Zealanders are able to access through their district.
So you're saying, I'm just getting my head around this, and I'm all agree for not charging, but we are one of the only libraries in New Zealand that charging.
We are the only library.
Sorry?
Yeah.
We are the only library.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Other libraries will charge their rental collection, but that's only a small part of it. There is a huge free collection in every library. I should also point out that when the library fees were first introduced, which was probably 15 years ago, I don't think many of the councillors actually even had a library card. They weren't users. And I think that is also not to that council's credit. But that's my personal opinion. Yeah. So we'll stick with that one. The library fees, we'll keep that in. Any alterations? Ellen?
No, I think it sounds good.
Yeah.
Do you want to change the wording, Chair, of reserve to a rental or a special collection?
Yes, I think we do that. That might be, well, it's easier to explain a rental collection, because because we have a separate system where we pay to reserve a book, and that is a common feature.
Sure.
But
yeah. So a special rental collection, we can refer to it as.
Yeah, I think that would be good. Yeah, okay, that's fine. The Cambridge Town Hall. Do people want to say anything about that? Jim and I can't say too much about that or anything about that. Any comments? No comments? Happy to leave it as it is?
Yeah, I thought it sounded good.
Okay, righto. Parking. Any comments there? No? We're all happy with that. CBD is a vibrant centre. Hi, Gary.
Okay.
Any comments about the Cambridge as a vibrant centre? No?
No.
Lake Te Kutu. Any comments there?
Chair, I have a comment. I wasn't part of putting the submission together, but I just wondered, and I'm just making sure I've read this properly. if we need to recommend or just draw attention to the fact that there are those, is the resource consent for stormwater coming up? And do we need to draw attention to that, Lake Te Kutu being part of that conversation and diverting stormwater into the lake?
Anybody else got something to say about this?
Yes, so I'd make a comment to that.
Yeah.
This community board would want to think carefully before it effectively submitted against its own district council. It's making an application to the Waikato Regional Council for a consent. It would be I believe that'd be a reasonably big step. So it would be something you wouldn't want to do casually or inadvertently. You'd want to do it after serious consideration.
Yeah.
How would that be going against the Waipa District Council? Sorry, Mike, if you could just enlighten me.
Look, there's wiser heads here than me, but the district council has to apply to the regional council for a discharge consent. So the regional council handles water, the river and everything. The district council is the one putting the water through. So a community board, which is, in many ways a subset of council, would just if we drew attention to it in a negative sense and used it as leverage to try and get something happening on Lake Te Kutu, I think we just want to be careful that it was a very well considered approach, not just something that accidentally sort of slid in without us fully appreciating the consequences.
Yeah. Yes. I think if we can keep this the way it is, I think it's quite good. I like the suggestion in that last paragraph about approaching iwi and approach from council to iwi and the Waikato River Authority for funding, because ultimately the lake is part of the Waikato River system. So I think we need to. Have you got anything to say on this, Gary?
Just a couple of things. So, first of all, we are looking at some of those recovery projects, those shovel-ready recovery projects, and I know our parks team have included this as one of them.
Right.
So potentially there is another funding source around that, which we're pursuing at the moment. But there are a couple of other recovery streams of funding as well that we're looking at as well around it. Looking at just strengthening that relationship with iwi with respect to this one as well, because that'll be a key part of how those applications are viewed as well. So that's progressing, and even if not, we'd still keep that conversation going with the River Authority as well. Just harking back to the stormwater, so there is a global consent that is coming up next year, I think. So we are working on that and aware of, I guess, the importance of Lake Te Kutu in relation to that as well. So it's a known thing, don't think because if you don't say anything here, it's going to go away. It is something we're pretty aware of.
Yeah.
So I think what you've got is fine, I guess.
Yeah. Well, so just leave it as it is. Okay. We'll move on to public transport. This is about the bus service that we don't have. Does anybody have any comments about this bus service?
Nothing other than I think we need it.
Yeah. Yeah. So quite happy to put it in as it is.
Yeah, just on that, just the other day, a gentleman from Te Awa Life Care decided to go for a walk, and he went out the gate, and of course there's no footpath between Te Awa and back into Cambridge Road, Hamilton Road. So he was literally walking along the side of the road on his, he was wanting to get into town. It wasn't really appropriate that I picked him up in person gave him a ride, but I did send someone back to give him a lift in a car. But yeah, he was just wanting to go for a ride. He's just wanting to get into town, and there's no transport.
No.
The rest homes, well, Te Awa, the hospital, whatever you want to call it, said, you know, he can ask and book a ride in with the van. But it just highlights the point that there's no bus service going around that these villages.
I think what used to happen, and it was still happening when I first came to Cambridge 20 odd years ago, people used to actually, who lived along that stretch where Te Awa is now, and right up as far as Tamahiri, would actually stand out on the road. They knew when the railways bus was going to come past, and they would literally do a hail and ride system, and this is how they came in on the bus. And it continued, I think, for a wee while with the current bus system, but I think it's largely forgotten, and I don't really think a hail and ride system is what we want. We want a decent bus system, and I think as the subdivisions are going out, I think we need to make sure that the bus routes are going out with them.
Very much so. I mean, there's the 3 M's have got that big subdivision going opposite Te Awa.
Yeah.
There's Hautapu, there's all sorts of people.
Kills are way out there everywhere. We need a bus service. Taupo has a brilliant bus service, but and I think they're smaller than we are these days. But
I would hate to think the amount of times we have to pick someone up to take them to the cemetery from a retirement village. I did it last week for someone who all she wanted, she just didn't feel it. She normally walks there, but because of the weather conditions, so I broke a bubble. But she needed to go and see her husband.
Yeah, it's not good, and I think, you know, a decent transport system is the mark of a decent town, and at the moment we don't have it. So we'll keep pushing for that one. So anybody got any additions to add to that submission? Gary, have you got a comment?
No, that's fine.
No? Okay. We'll leave that. Improve cycling and walking connectivity. Now there's some good work done here. So any additions to it? I mean, it'd be great if we get more kids to use their bikes and walking. There were plenty of children. That survey demonstrated the kids would increase their use. The problem, I think, was the parents. But any more comments? Joe, you do lots of biking and walking with your children.
I do. And it's been a forced occurrence recently, but I think we could have added so much more to that cycling one, and we really, with Mike's help, condensed it down, which I think we needed to, because we could have just gone on and on. But it's just so good to see that because the roads are quieter, people feel it's a bit safer, so they're all on their bikes. So that's really where the focus we thought had to be, was actually making the streets, once all the cars come back, making the streets or bike paths or protected cycle paths safer, so that people, you know, can travel a little bit more economically, because I think a lot of people are going to be trying to do that going forward. So, but yeah, I'm happy with what we've got. Like I said, we could have gone on and on, but I think what we've got is probably where we're at.
Yeah, no, that was really good. Thank you.
Just to reinforce, there is a piece of work that transportation are starting on quite soon around, I guess it's a business case for urban mobility in Cambridge. So it's the whole walking, cycling, mobility scooters, that whole network. So I understand that someone from, well, the representation from the community board is going to be sought for that group as well.
Yeah. I'd be happy to put myself forward for that group when that time comes. Um,
That would be
But-
good. Yeah, you're just the right sort of person to do it, Joe. You're walking and you do the cycling, and you've got kids and you know what it's like out there. So well done. Yeah, no, that would be good. Okay, so we're happy with that. Destination playground. Thought that was quite a good one too. So I think that was Elise and Joe again, wasn't it?
mm,
Yeah. How does everyone feel about that one?
It's a
Happy?
good idea.
Yeah,
Yeah.
happy.
Right, great. Okay, so the recommendation is,
Just on the recommendations, just thinking because we've had a couple of interest declarations, do you want to break those recommendations into two? So you move the first one, Sue?
right. Okay, I'll move that first one. A, the information contained in the report, the Cambridge Community Board draft annual plan, submission of the chairperson, be received. So I'll move that. And would someone second it, please?
Yeah, I can second that.
Jim? Okay, all those in favour?
Aye.
Thank you. Then the Cambridge Community Board approves, the draft submission on the 2020-21 annual plan included in this report for submission to Waipā District Council by Friday the 24th of April. Who would like to move that?
I'll move that.
Seconder?
Second.
Elise. All those in favour?
Aye.
Right. Carried. Thank you very much for that. That's really good, and thank you for all the work that you all put in. And it was really great, and that you all wanted to and were able to do a bit for all of them. Really appreciate that. So, Joe, we'll